Welcome to Warranty Wednesdays, where we don't need warranties, and today we're going to fix everything that I found wrong with the ROG phone. The first thing that we're going to be doing today is setting up the phone. We're basically just going through the process of getting everything up and running. So let's just quickly switch over to that. Okay, so let's quickly go through the setup here. Not sure what this is all about, but okay. There we go. Little mermaid notification sound. From here, we're going to switch over to screen capture. And then you can get a better look at what's going on and the tweaks that we're going to be making. So let's start the screen recording. There we go. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is change the launcher. I love Nova Launcher Prime. It's very, very similar to the original Google experience, which is basically what I'm going for. I want to get this to try and be as close to a Pixel as possible, but having all of the added options of a better phone. So as you can see, there's not a huge amount that's wrong with this. It's just the icons, everything. It kind of has a forced gamer aesthetic to it. Some might like it, but for me, it's not what I go for. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of show you around the place. So let's open the app drawer. And in here you can see that I'm using AZ screen recorder. That was just the first one when I typed in screen recorder. So you'll mostly notice that it's just a theme with a lot of lack of customization. So the icons and everything, they're just but then there's also some icons that don't merge over properly, like Chrome, Messages, Play Store, stuff like that. They don't use their own custom icon, so it doesn't match the theme very well. So we're gonna go into settings. And then from here, this is one of my favorite parts, is the dark theme throughout the entire phone. And because the phone has that copper orange theme on the speaker grills as well as the vent covers on the back of the phone, the dark and orange theme that this comes with is actually something that I'm keeping. I'm not actually going to go in and change this. So the first thing that you're going to want to do before you get into all of this is you're going to want to scroll all the way to the bottom and go to System. Now from here, we're going to click on System Updates. And now that it's checking for updates, we can see to make sure that this is the most current version of the operating system for this phone, because at this point would be the best opportunity to do a factory reset once doing all the updates. And the best way that I like to explain what we would be doing in this instance is, let's say you got new tires for your car, and that is essentially the new update. It's new features, you get to see it, you get to use it, it rides great, everything's fine. The only thing with doing an update is, yes, you get new features, and yes, they're visible and great, and everything's good about it. The downfall is it's like the shop leaving your old tires in the back seat, and that's all the old files that it just updated over top, and it left them in the background as a fail-safe. So in case anything with the new update goes wrong, it can fall back on those files. So if anything were to go wrong with that update, it would always be able to fall back on the original files to continue up and running until it can repair the current update. However, once you do the update and the phone successfully reboots and everything's working, you no longer need those old files. And with Android 9, there is a cleanup feature which seems to actually work pretty good, but as for just a good rule of thumb is every time you do a system update, just back up your phone, factory reset, and then start it over on the newest update, fresh out of the box. That way you don't have any old conflicting files that could be causing bugs, app crashes, battery drainage. And this isn't just an Android thing. This also goes for iOS, and especially iOS. That's one of the most critical operating systems that you should be doing this with in order to keep the most functionality out of your phone, especially since Apple releases those updates intended for newer hardware, so those new updates already slow down your phone. But keeping all of those old files stored in the background is only salt in the wound in that case. So the most responsible approach to do in this sort of instance is a full backup on your phone, do the system update, factory reset your phone, and restore the update. So with that being said, the first thing that we were doing here was we were looking for a system update, so that way if it wasn't the newest, we could update and then wipe the phone, as we have nothing on here, so we don't have to make a backup and take lots of time doing that. And because there's no update, we can just continue on because we're already on the latest version. Okay, so now let's open the Play Store so we can search for Nova Launcher. This is the screen recorder app that I'm using. It was just the first one that came up, and I don't know if it's working very well. If you like the results, because I haven't seen them yet either, then feel free to download it. It's a free app that supports full resolution, so hopefully it's good. So now let's search for Nova Launcher. There we are. And we're just going to click install. Okay, now from here, all you got to do is just hit the home button and it'll ask you which one you want to do. So we're going to click Nova Launcher and always. Now from here, you can normally restore from a backup if you had one, which in the instance that I mentioned earlier where you would make a backup of your phone before wiping it after a system update, this would be the instance where you restore the update. But for right now, we're just going to set it up new. So we're going to make sure that Fresh Start is selected and click Next. And then here, obviously we want a dark mode. And we want the swipe up style from the Pixel. And that's it. Now we have a launcher that's very similar to the Pixel, but has tons of customization to it, as well as changing all of the icons for your app drawer, adding a different amount of icons. You can have up to 7 in the dock, I believe. You can get rid of the dock entirely if that's not something that you're into. You can add and subtract pages. You can make the pages scroll with the wallpaper if that's something that you want. But for me, I like a very minimalistic approach to the phone where it just has what I need ready to go and that's it. And at the end of this video, I'm actually going to show you another launcher that I like to dive into, and it's for a more advanced crowd of people. But because this phone isn't rooted, this second launcher that's going to come up a lot later isn't ideal because of how strongly it benefits from having root access. But I'll show you anyway, and it's still really fun to play with. But for now, we're going to clean this up. So the first thing that I like to do is swipe over, and we're going to remove this icon. Just tap and hold, click the X. That's it. And when that icon's gone, the entire page actually gets removed because it recognizes that there's nothing there. So as you can see, we can't swipe to the left anymore. So now we're going to go over to the right and we're going to remove that folder. So long press, remove, and there we go. That's it. Now we have no left or right. And now on this main page, I also like to remove everything as well. So we're going to remove this folder and the search bar. So we're just going to long press on the folder again and click remove. And then again with the search bar, long press and remove. So now we have a really clean home screen. It just, well, it looks like there's just nothing on it. So I want to clean that up further by going into the Nova Launcher settings. So all you need to do from here is just long press anywhere in the middle of the screen and then go down to settings. Okay, so from here we'll open the app drawer just so you can get the feel of what it looks like normally. And you can see that the icons are absolutely huge. There's also this portion right here at the top. Those are your most recent apps, and I don't really use that. If I wanted the most recent apps, there's actually a function in this where you go to the search, and as soon as you click, it'll bring up your most recent apps. So you essentially still have your most recent apps, but they're hidden, which I think is a lot cleaner and it works a lot better that way. So from here, we're just gonna go back home. We're gonna long press in the middle of the screen, and we're gonna go to settings. Now from here, we can go to app drawer, and we're gonna change the drawer app grid. We're going to change that to 5 and 7. Now we're just going to click done and check the app drawer to see if that's something that we like. So as you can see, it looks very congested right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to change the icon sizes to be a lot smaller by changing the visual settings for this phone, and that'll give us a lot more screen real estate so we can actually benefit from the size of having a bigger screen phone. So for this, we're going to go into settings. So now that we're in the settings, you might think it's in display, but it's actually in accessibility. And then in here, we're just going to scroll down and you can see where it says font size. We're going to click that and we're going to go down and make that smaller. So now we can fit more text on the screen at once. Now we're going to go to display size and do the same. You can just ignore this message. Most apps are smart enough to recognize that the DPI is actually changed. And now we have everything a lot smaller. So now let's open that app drawer again. So now you can see there's a nice spacing between the icons. And from here, it has a factory look to it, but you can just tell that something's not quite the same as a factory phone because there's so many icons and you're using so much of your screen space. If we just scroll down so the recent apps are hidden, we can fit every app that comes pre-installed on this phone in one screen, which now brings us into removing that recent app. So we're gonna go back to the Nova Launcher settings and we're gonna go back to app drawer. We just slide the toggle for frequently used apps. Now, just to clean this up a little bit further, I'm going to remove the icon that just kind of instructs you to swipe up to open the app drawer. So we're gonna go down and swipe indicator. We're gonna uncheck that. When we go back to the home screen, it'll just be the dock with no arrow. So you can see it's a lot cleaner already. Now, another thing that I don't like is the fast scroll bar because the whole reason of adding so many apps in one page was to keep scrolling to a minimum. So we don't need fast scrolling. So from here, we're just gonna turn it off entirely. So now these are most of the features for the free version, but if you get Prime, you can also hide apps. So if we open the app drawer again, you can see there's apps like this one here, Sim Toolkit, but it's not an app that you want to forcefully remove by rooting and deleting system apps. So for an instance like this, you would just hide it from the app drawer, as well as secondary shortcuts. So for instance, we have a Nova Launcher icon right here, and we have a settings icon right here. So we could remove both of those because we can get to the Nova Launcher settings by long pressing here and swiping down from the notifications to click settings up here. So we already have two other access points to those settings. So there's really no benefit in having the app drawer filled up with more congested apps that you're not going to use when you have alternate ways of actually using them. So this is what makes this bigger grid a lot more beneficial because you not only have access to all of your apps in one screen, but you can also remove the ones that have secondary access points to keep only the dedicated apps in here while still being easier to navigate through because the other apps with other access points aren't here congesting everything. Once you start getting into this, there's a lot of customization to make your life significantly easier. So now for me, I did buy Nova Launcher Prime. I feel it was 100% worth every penny. So I'm just going to install that to hide some of the icons really quick. So back into the app drawer, and now we can hide icons. And I'm going to hide the screen recorder because we don't need to look at that. And I'm going to hide themes. I'm not going to use those. Sound recorder, Sim Toolkit, settings, and Nova Launcher. So the rest of it I'm just going to leave in here for now. I don't see anything that I really want to remove. Okay, so everything there looks good. So now when we go back, we have even less icons in the app drawer. So you can see that we even have room in the bottom to add more apps into keeping a one-page app system going. And if you wanted to go into this further, you could actually remove the search bar at the top and fit nearly another row of icons, which to get the last row of icons into that app drawer, we're actually going to turn this into a gesture-based phone by removing the navy bar at the bottom. So for that, we go into settings. So this is one of my favorite features about the phone. Once we get into setting, we're gonna go to display. And in here, you're gonna go down to navigation bar. So now what I want to do is I want to disable the first two options for the regular navy bar so that way it doesn't conflict by accidentally swiping and hitting the other icons. So we're going to remove those. So now we only have gesture based. So now if we swipe from the left, that's the back button. If we swipe from the right, that's the multitask button. And if we swipe from the middle, that's the home button. And these are from off of the screen onto the screen. When you swipe from off of the screen onto it through the middle, that's the home button. But when you swipe from the dock area up, that's the app drawer. So now you have a whole bunch of gestures right at the bottom of the phone, making it super powerful. But now, like I mentioned, look at how much room we have at the bottom of the phone for more apps. So now if we did remove that search bar, we have even more apps. Now the icons here aren't that bad. I like these significantly better than the ROG ones that Asus preloads onto the phone. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to install an icon pack to use for the dock only by manually changing those icons. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove all of the icons from the dock so we have a clean slate to actually play with and put the apps in place. So for these, you just long press all of them and click the X. And now we have a nice clean empty space. So we're going to open the Play Store and we're going to download some icons. And now we're just going to install this. There we go. So now instead of opening this, we're gonna go back to the home screen, open the app drawer, long press on the apps that we want, and just drag them to either the desktop or the dock, and then we'll organize them from there in the order that we want. So obviously we're gonna want Chrome. So we're gonna drag that. And we want Hangouts right there. And we're going to take the camera app right here. No third-party apps for that because we like using the second camera. And now we just want regular text messaging. And finally, SoundCloud. There we go. So now that we have the apps that we want, we can just put these in whatever order. Just gonna drag all these here. And now we have the dock filled out. But now I want to make this a little bit cleaner, a little bit more minimalistic, which is where those icons came in. So from here, we're just going to long press and go to edit. And then on edit, all we need to do is just tap on the icon. You can see the flight light icon pack that we downloaded. We're just going to tap on that. And now it's going to automatically pick a suggested icon for that based on the stock icons. And right there is the camera. So we're going to click that one. And we can do that for the rest of these. So now everything is nice and organized, so I want to load a better wallpaper, but I'm going to go one step further because if I lock the phone here, you can actually see the lock screen, and then in here, it's the same wallpaper. Nothing really changed, but we can have dual wallpaper. So for the lock screen, I intentionally edited a photo so it would be blurry, and when you unlock it, it becomes clear once it gets to the desktop. So we're going to load those up, and I put a link in the description to where you can download those. Long press, wallpaper, pick image, and then in here, you can see the wallpapers that we picked. So first, I'm going to do the lock screen. I'm going to pick the blurry one and set wallpaper as lock screen. Now we're going to long press again, wallpaper, pick image, clear image, set wallpaper, home screen. And now when we lock the phone again, we have a blurry wallpaper and a clear wallpaper. Now some other further tweaks that I like to get into here is actually just making the dock icons just slightly smaller. I feel like they are just a little bit too big. We're actually going to go back into the Nova Launcher settings. We're going to go to home screen, and then we're going to go down to dock. And then in here, you want to click on icon layout. Now in icon layout, it just matches the desktop size, but because we didn't change anything there, it's picking the default. So from here, we're actually just going to uncheck that box and then scroll this toggle down to 100%. So now this matches the factory icon size decreased by the DPI change that we did earlier, making everything smaller. So now the icons themselves are more relative to the amount of screen real estate that we have. So if we go back, you can see that it's significantly cleaner looking. And now we're going to get into the fun part of disabling almost all of the preloaded Asus apps. App info. And now from here, we can just tap on each app. We can force stop. Can uninstall. And it's as easy as that. Asus ZenTalk Community. We're going to force stop and disable that app. Now, Mobile Manager was actually a really cool app to start using. It monitors the way that you use your phone and recommends settings based off of that. So for instance, charging patterns. If you charge your phone and leave it overnight on a fast charge and it's charged at 100%, it's going to start to deteriorate the battery. And what this app will do, it'll actually lower the charge intake on the phone so that way it'll take longer to charge overnight, and it'll prolong the discharge by actually taking a slow charge to the phone versus a fast charge during the day. So once you start using it for a while, let's say you fell asleep and you left your phone beside you, not plugged in. You wake up and your phone's at 20%, you need to charge it before you get to work. So it's going to recognize the battery's really low, and it's going to fast charge the phone for you up to a certain percentage. I think it's around 75%. But if you unplug it before the 75%, it'll make a marker there, remembering that that was a point where you needed the fast charge as much as possible. So then if you do that again the next day, it's going to add another marker. In the mornings, the owner of this phone needs to fast charge the phone as quick as possible before leaving. But if you plug it in at night and the phone's very low, but then it gets up to the 75% threshold and then continues to go all the way to 100 and then sits at 100 for a few hours before you actually wake up to unplug it, it'll start to remember that and it'll lower the fast charge threshold further down. Now, because this is AI based, it has to start getting used to your habits. Now, it sounds good on paper, but the huge downfall to this is the notifications that it keeps giving you. For instance, one of them that just never goes away is it gives you recommendations on how to save battery life. For instance, turning your brightness setting on auto, which many people know that isn't a perfect instance, like in the car. Let's say you're in a car with some friends or family, and you're in the back seat, windows are slightly darker than the front, and you want a little bit more brightness on your phone. And because the phone's not recognizing that you're outside because of the slightly darker atmosphere, it's not boosting the brightness up to the level that you want it. So you put it on manual brightness, control it manually the way that you intend to, or maybe you're gaming and you just want full brightness, or editing photos, which you should only be editing at full brightness. It gives you a notification saying that your screen brightness isn't on auto and you should put it on auto. even though you've intentionally turned it off, you can't swipe the icon away. You can't get rid of it. It's always there. And that's not the only instance where that happens. It'll also do it with the screen timeout. Let's say you're playing a game that has a 30-second ad on it, and the screen timeout is set to 30 seconds. The screen times out, and when you turn the phone back on, the ad restarts because it didn't finish. So halfway through the ad, you need to kind of tap your screen or scroll to stop the screen from timing out until the ad's done to get the bonus points that we all need for all of those games. So setting it to 1 minute is a perfect timer for that, because you get a little bit of excess time to watch the ad, click the X, go back to your game, and everything's fine. But you get another notification from that. So this program itself, I am going to disable because it's extremely annoying. However, it is a very good program. It's just really bad with the notifications. If there's a way to just turn all of the notifications off and only have ones that are critically pending, then they really have something here. But as for the time being, it is an extremely annoying program to have on the phone. And the rest of these apps down here, I'm not going to remove entirely because I haven't really finished playing with them to determine, but these would also be other apps that would potentially be removed. So for instance, Splendid, Themes, Weather, Zenmoji, and Zen UI Help, which actually I'm going to remove that last one. We don't need that. So that's pretty much that. Now the phone's extremely cleaned up. You can go back to the Nova Launcher settings and remove the icon for the icon pack right there. Now you can see the app drawer is getting really cleaned up, and there's tons of room for more apps that are going to be downloaded in the future. So the next thing we're going to be diving into is the ringtones. They don't match the phone's appearance at all. They're very weird. So we're going to go into settings, we're going to go to sounds, we're going to go to the default notification sound. I'm going to turn that volume up so you can hear it. That sounds like the beginning of that song from The Little Mermaid.
Swim up to his castle, then Flounder will splash around to get his attention, and then we'll
Down
go...
here is your home. Ariel, listen to me.
Right? Do you hear it? It's exactly the same. Okay, so we're just going to change that to simple F1 new SMS. So that's just your general notification sound, and it actually kind of matches the phone theme, so I feel like that should have been the default. Then the alarm sound. Ow. This thing is loud. I think if anything, this phone is going to give you a heart attack before it actually wakes you up to the sound of it. It is so loud. When I said that Windows Phone was loud, it is a very loud phone. This puts it to shame. So another really useful app for this phone is hiding notifications. So we're going to go back to the Play Store, and we are going to search hide notifications. And we're going to go hide running in the background notifications. This one here, I'll actually put a direct link to this in the description so you can get the right one. And we're going to install this. Okay, so that's installed. We're just going to open that app. And we're going to allow. Now it has access to the notifications, and this is useful for using NordVPN. Not sponsored by NordVPN, kind of wish I was because of how frequently I use it. But what we're going to do is go back to here, and we're going to search for NordVPN. Now we're going to install that. Now we can open this, and let's log in. Log in for me. Now we will connect to the motherland, Sweden. And I'm just clicking OK to all of these. You have to, or it's not going to work. So now we are connected, and you can see in the notifications here that there's nothing for NordVPN itself. And normally you would have a persistent notification that doesn't go away, but because we've installed this one here, it's actually going to be hiding the notifications for these two apps because all of them were selected. And this was that persistent notification that I was telling you about before, where it would say that it was using battery life in the background, even though that I knew it was because it's a background running app For instance, like SoundCloud in the car, you have a notification sitting there all the time if you're listening to music, or if you're on public Wi-Fi's or something like that and you're using NordVPN, you again have the notification running in the background there. So as you can see here, there's nothing that says that we're using excess battery life because that program is hiding those notifications. And then there's also another one that'll hide persistent notifications entirely. So for instance, this one with the screen recorder app, I can actually remove that notification entirely by using their paid version. But for the uses that I need, this is more than acceptable. Now the whole phone has this really nice dark theme, but you may have noticed that every time I open the Play Store, we have a light keyboard. So to quickly change that, we're just gonna go to Settings, and we're gonna go to System, Language and Input, Virtual Keyboard, click on Gboard, on Theme. So we're just gonna pick this one here, which is the stock dark keyboard for Android 9. So now we have that keyboard, and if we want to search for something, now we get a dark keyboard at the bottom, which looks a lot better in my opinion. So that pretty much wraps that up. It's not a huge change in the phone, but for me, giving it this minimalistic design in terms of productivity and just the general aesthetic of the phone that I go for. I like to open the phone and look at it like this. It's just a really clean, minimalistic layout that just contrasts with the aggressive design of the exterior of the phone. So for me, it's the perfect balance between both of them. We're gonna get into the bonus that I had for you, which is another launcher that's more advanced and extremely benefits from being rooted. However, this one isn't, so we're not going to have all of the features, but we're still gonna have tons with a very intimidating layout. We're gonna search for CLI Launcher. That's gonna be this first one here. I'll also link this in the description so you can get the exact application. And we're going to install this. And we're gonna open this launcher. And you can see here that this is a lot more intimidating, but this one ends up being extremely handy to use when you have a lot of stuff to do, because you can actually see up here in the green where it says no notes. You can add notes. So for instance, we can type in notes, space, flag, add, and now we can add whatever note that we want. There we go. So now up here in the green text, you can see that there's a note. So hopefully you guys don't forget about that one. This launcher here is by far one of my favorites. But if you're going for that super minimalistic design, you can't beat Nova Launcher. Now that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the walkthrough, going from a completely stock ROG phone into my interpretation of what is the perfect phone for 2019. It's clean, minimalistic, it has some slight tweaks here and there that aren't a huge change, but they just add enough to the eye candy that it just seems more refined. And if you want to scare people off and you love Linux, then feel free to go for CLI Launcher. That launcher is absolutely amazing and one of the most powerful launchers I've ever used, especially with root access. It's not just a launcher that has text-based in it, it's an actual terminal shell for Android. You can run commands in it, you can open applications, you can send text messages from it. It's actually kind of outstanding how powerful that is, and eventually down the road we will get into rooting this phone to uninstall some of the system apps to wipe them out entirely. That'll gain us a little bit of space back as the placeholder storage that's being used for those, but then we'll also get tons of functionality with that CLI Launcher, which we're going to dive into and just get a wide variety of all of the function that that launcher has, going into a much more advanced situation with the ROG phone. So that wraps up this Warranty Wednesday. Don't forget to subscribe, leave some comments down below. I always love reading those and replying to as many as possible. Give me some video suggestions for future videos to upcome, things in this video that I didn't touch on that you'd like to see a second part further in detail, because we will be making another video of this phone when we get into rooting it sometime in the future. Hit the like button if you liked this video, hit the dislike button if you didn't. Let me know the content that you guys want to see. Share that video if that's something that you want to do. But as for me, I will see you guys in the Sloth Garage tomorrow for Throttle Thursdays.